The blade sliced through the air, missing Louis's throat by mere inches as he threw himself backward, crashing into the dense undergrowth. Blue blood splattered across his face, not his own, but from the creature he'd managed to wound seconds earlier. "They're coming from the east!" Anna Maria shouted, her voice barely audible over the horrific screeching of the sky predators circling above them. Louis scrambled to his feet, the alien child, Lili, clutching his leg with trembling blue fingers. Her enormous eyes reflected the moonlight, filled with a terror that transcended language barriers. "Please, human," she whimpered. "They'll find my mother again if we stop." A shadow passed overhead, massive wings blotting out the stars. Louis grabbed Lili and dove beneath a fallen tree trunk just as razor-sharp talons ripped through the spot where they'd stood. The forest around them was alive with movement, predators closing in. "Ron! Where's Ron?" Louis called out, searching frantically for his friend. "Here!" The response came from somewhere to his right, followed by the sickening sound of metal meeting flesh. Ron emerged from the darkness, his primitive spear dripping with the same luminescent blue liquid that now stained Louis's clothes. "We can't stay here. The valley narrows ahead. We'll be trapped." 3 days ago, Louis had been nothing more than a colony surveyor, mapping the outer territories of New Earth for potential settlement. 3 days ago, he had never killed anything more dangerous than the occasional venomous crawler that found its way into his tent. 3 days ago, this child hadn't appeared at his campsite, desperate and alone, begging him to save her captured mother. "Pen is down!" Anna Maria's voice cracked as she joined them, her face streaked with dirt and tears. "He told me to run." They took him up. Lili's grip on Louis's leg tightened. "Like they took my mother." A blood-curdling screech echoed through the valley, followed by the unmistakable human scream of agony, Pen's final cry. Louis swallowed hard, fighting the urge to vomit. "We keep moving. That's what Pen would want." He hoisted Lili onto his shoulders. "The nest has to be close. We find it, we find her mother, and we end this." Anna Maria nodded grimly, raising her makeshift knife, once part of their survey equipment, now their only hope for survival. "For Pen." Ron spat blood onto the blue moss beneath their feet. "For all of us. Because if we fail, they'll hunt every last human on this planet." The group pushed forward into the darkness, unaware that the true horror of their journey had only just begun. 3 nights earlier, Louis had been jolted awake by a sound he couldn't immediately identify, something between a cry and a whistle. His survey tent, positioned at the edge of the habitable zone, offered little protection from the elements of this strange world, let alone from potential predators. He reached for his mapping knife, the only weapon he had been issued. Colony regulations prohibited firearms in the survey teams, something about maintaining ecological balance that seemed absurdly idealistic now. The sound came again, closer this time, distinctly distressed, distinctly young. "Hello?" Louis called out, immediately regretting breaking silence. Anything could be lurking in the dense forest surrounding his camp. What emerged from the tree line, however, was no predator, at least not in the traditional sense. A small figure, no taller than a human child of 8 or 9, stumbled into the clearing. Its skin glowed a faint blue in the moonlight, and enormous eyes, almost too large for its delicate face, blinked rapidly, adjusting to the dim light of Louis's solar lamp. "Please, human," the creature spoke in halting English. "Hurry! My mother is caught!" Louis froze, knife still raised. The translocation team had discovered native intelligent life on this planet 6 months ago, but contact had been minimal and strictly regulated. Xenophobic incidents on both sides had led to an unspoken agreement of mutual avoidance. Yet here was one of them, a child, seeking human help. "Your mother?" Louis managed, lowering his knife slightly. "What happened to her?" The alien child, female, Louis guessed by the higher pitch of her voice, pointed skyward with a trembling 6-fingered hand. "Sky predators," she whispered, the words carrying an almost reverential terror. "They took her to the nest. They will drain her." Louis had heard rumors of aerial predators in the Northern Territories. The survey teams called them pterodactyls for their resemblance to Earth's ancient flying reptiles, though these creatures were far larger and reportedly far more intelligent. "I'm sorry," Louis said, his training kicking in, "but I can't interfere with native—" "They will come for me next," the child interrupted, her enormous eyes welling with tears that shimmered like liquid silver in the moonlight. And then they will come for your kind. They know you are here now. They have tasted human. A chill ran down Louis's spine. What's your name? He asked, buying time while his mind raced through options. Lili, she replied, the human approximation of what had sounded like a melodic trill. My mother is Kora. She is important. She speaks to the earth. She keeps balance. Protocol dictated that Louis should report this encounter, not engage further. But the communication relay was back at the main camp, a 2-day journey south. By then, this child's mother would likely be dead, if what Lili said was true. Wait here, Louis said, ducking back into his tent. He emerged moments later with his emergency pack and the mapping knife secured to his belt. I'll help you find your mother, he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. But I can't do it alone. We need to find my friends first. Lili's face lit up, literally, as a subtle bioluminescence brightened her blue features. More humans? Strong fighters? Louis thought of Ron and Penn, fellow surveyors camped 10 kilometers east, and Anna Maria, the botanist studying native flora another 5 kilometers beyond them. Not exactly warriors, but they were all he had. Strong enough, he lied, hoping it wouldn't get them all killed. The journey to Ron and Penn's camp took most of the night. Louis moved as quickly as he dared through the unfamiliar terrain, guided by his positioning device and Lili's uncanny ability to sense dangers before they materialized. Twice, she pulled him to a halt just before they would have stumbled upon one of the native predators, 6-legged feline creatures with razor-sharp quills along their spines. Each time, Lili's skin dimmed until she was nearly invisible in the darkness, a natural camouflage that Louis could only envy as he pressed himself against tree trunks, holding his breath until the danger passed. How much farther? Lili whispered after several hours of travel. Though small, she showed remarkable endurance, keeping pace with Louis's longer strides without complaint. Close now, Louis assured her, checking his device. My friends should be just beyond that ridge. They crested the hill as the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky. The dual suns of this planet, one orange, one smaller and bluish, created spectacular sunrises that Louis would normally have paused to appreciate. Today, he barely noticed the kaleidoscope of colors painting the horizon. Ron and Penn's camp came into view, a small clearing with 2 regulation tents and a modest fire pit. Louis's relief at seeing the campsite intact quickly turned to concern. There was no movement, no sign of his fellow surveyors. Stay behind me, he instructed Lili, drawing his knife as they approached. Ron? Penn? Louis called out, keeping his voice low but projecting enough to be heard within the tents. A rustling sound from the larger tent preceded Ron's disheveled appearance. The geologist emerged with his own knife drawn, eyes widening at the sight of Louis, and then growing even wider at the sight of Lili. What the hell, Louis? Ron hissed, lowering his weapon but not sheathing it. You know the protocols about native contact. Where's Penn? Louis asked, ignoring the rebuke. Water run. He'll be back soon. Ron's eyes never left Lili, who was partly hidden behind Louis's leg. You want to explain why you've got a blue kid with you? Before Louis could answer, Penn emerged from the tree line, water containers in hand. Unlike Ron's shocked reaction, Penn simply sighed at the sight of Lili. I knew this would happen eventually, he said cryptically, setting down the water. They've taken someone, haven't they? Lili stepped forward, suddenly less shy. You know of the sky predators? Penn nodded grimly. I've seen their hunting patterns. They're moving closer to human settlements every cycle. They have Lili's mother, Louis explained, and according to her, they've already killed humans. Ron cursed under his breath. The missing advance team? Command said it was an environmental accident. It wasn't, Penn confirmed. I found evidence last month, reported it up the chain. They classified the information, said it would cause panic. Louis felt a surge of anger. They're keeping us in the dark while people die. Standard corporate colonization procedure, Penn said with bitter resignation. Protect the investment. Control the narrative. Lili stepped forward, her small voice cutting through their argument. My mother does not have time for your human politics. She keeps balance. Without her, more will die, blue and pink skin alike. The 3 men fell silent, properly chastised by the child. We need Anna Maria, Louis said finally. She knows these forests better than any of us. Ron shook his head. This is insane, Louis. We're surveyors, not soldiers. We should call for an extraction team. That would take days, Penn interrupted. The sky predators don't keep their prey alive that long. He knelt before Lili, meeting her large eyes. How long has your mother been missing? 2 sleeps, Lili replied. The third sleep is when they consume. Penn looked up at his companions. Tonight. They'll kill her tonight. Ron ran a hand through his hair, cursing again. So what? We just grab our tent knives and go hunting for flying monsters? That's suicide. Not necessarily, Louis said, a plan forming in his mind. Anna Maria has been studying native plant toxins, if we can weaponize those. And I know where they nest, Penn added. I've been mapping their territories. Ron looked between them, then down at Lili, whose eyes had begun to shimmer with fresh tears. He sighed deeply. Fine. But when we all die horribly, I'm going to be really pissed at you both. Anna Maria's camp was more elaborate than theirs, a main tent surrounded by smaller collection stations for her botanical samples. They found her categorizing specimens, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, fingers stained green from plant extracts. Unlike the others, her reaction to Lili was immediate and warm. Oh my, she said, kneeling to meet the child at eye level. Lee, aren't you beautiful? I've been hoping to meet one of your people properly. Lili seemed drawn to Anna Maria's maternal energy, moving closer to her than she had to any of the men. My mother is beautiful, Lili said softly. The sky predators have her. Anna Maria's expression darkened. She looked up at the 3 men questioningly. Flying predators, Penn explained. They've established hunting territories that now include both native settlements and our outposts. They've already killed humans. And they have Lili's mother, Luke added. We're going to get her back. Anna Maria didn't waste time arguing about the wisdom of their plan. Instead, she immediately stood and began gathering supplies. I've been studying defensive toxins in the local flora, she said, confirming Louis's hopes. Some are potent enough to paralyze the larger predators. We can use them to coat our blades. She moved efficiently around her camp, collecting vials of extracts and dried plant matter. I'll need an hour to prepare enough for all of us. While Anna Maria worked, Penn spread out his mapping data, showing them the territories he'd been secretly tracking. The nests are here, he indicated a mountain range to the northeast, about 20 kilometers from our position. If we move quickly, we can reach the foothills by nightfall. And then what? Ron asked, the skeptic of their group. We just climb up and ask nicely for them to release her? The sky predators hunt at dusk and dawn, Lili explained. At full night, many stay to guard the nests, but fewer than during day. So we go up at night, Louis concluded. Use the darkness and Anna Maria's toxins to our advantage. There's something you should know, Penn said hesitantly. These creatures, they're not just animals. The colonization committee has been downplaying their intelligence. How intelligent are we talking? Anna Maria asked without looking up from her work. They use tools. They communicate with complex vocalizations. And he paused, glancing at Lili. They keep prisoners alive deliberately, studying them before the final kill. A heavy silence fell over the group. Why didn't you report this? Louis asked quietly. Penn's expression was grim. I did. Got the same response. Information classified, continue standard operations. Bastards, Ron muttered, setting us up as bait while they figure out how valuable this planet is. It doesn't matter now, Anna Maria interrupted, sealing the last of her toxic preparations. What matters is saving Lili's mother and getting back alive. She looked directly at Lili. I promise you, little one, we will try our hardest. Lili nodded solemnly. I will help. I can see in darkness, feel the predators coming. That's settled then, Louis said with more confidence than he felt. We leave immediately. Every minute counts. As they gathered their minimal supplies and Anna Maria distributed her toxic-coated blades, none of them voiced the obvious, that they were likely walking to their deaths. But each time Louis's resolve wavered, he looked at Lili's determined little face and remembered why they had to try. Some things were worth dying for, and preventing a war between humans and the native species of this planet seemed like one of them. The journey to the mountains was grueling. They moved as quickly as possible through increasingly unfamiliar terrain, relying on Penn's maps and Lili's uncanny ability to sense danger before it appeared. The alien child proved invaluable, warning them of venomous plants and hidden predators that their equipment couldn't detect. Twice she led them on detours that seemed inefficient until they discovered the original path would have taken them directly into danger. "How do you know?" Louis asked after Lili guided them around a beautiful but deadly flowering grove that Anna Maria confirmed would have paralyzed them within minutes of exposure. "I feel it," Lili explained, touching her chest. "My people, we connect. To plants, to animals, to air. My mother is strongest connector. She teaches others." "She's a spiritual leader," Anna Maria suggested. Lili considered this. "More. She keeps balance between all things. Without her, fighting begins." Ron, who had been quiet for much of the journey, spoke up. "So these sky predators, taking her isn't just about hunting, it's strategic?" Lili nodded gravely. "They are smart. They know taking Mother causes chaos." "Divide and conquer," Penn murmured. "Classic tactical move." The implications hung heavily in the air as they continued their trek. If the flying predators were deliberately targeting community leaders, their intelligence was far beyond what the colonization committee had admitted, and their threat level exponentially higher. By late afternoon, the mountain range loomed before them, jagged peaks cutting into the sky like teeth. The vegetation thinned as they began their ascent, offering less cover but better visibility. "There," Penn pointed to a particular formation near the top of the nearest peak. "That's where I've observed them returning with prey." Louis squinted against the setting suns. The mountain face was dotted with dark openings, caves or carved nests, impossible to tell from this distance. "How do we know which one holds Lili's mother?" he asked. "We don't," Penn admitted. "We'll have to search them." Ron laughed humorlessly. "Sure, we'll just pop into each monster nest and ask if they've seen a blue lady." "I will know," Lili said with quiet certainty. "When we are closer, I will feel her." They made camp in a protected ravine, concealed from aerial view by an outcropping of rock. As darkness fell, the true alienness of this world became apparent. Bioluminescent insects filled the air, creating constellations of moving light. Strange calls echoed between the peaks, some clearly from the sky predators, others unidentifiable. Anna Maria distributed her weapons, knives and sharpened survey tools coated with the paralytic toxins she'd prepared. "One cut should slow them," she explained. "Multiple cuts might kill, depending on the creature's size. But you'll need to get close." "That's reassuring," Ron muttered, testing the edge of his blade against his thumb. "We should rest in shifts," Louis suggested, 2 hours each. "We move at midnight." As the others settled in, Louis took the first watch, positioning himself at the edge of their small camp, where he could observe both the sky and the path they'd climbed. Lili surprised him by sitting quietly at his side. "You should sleep," he told her gently. "Tomorrow will be difficult." "Cannot sleep," she replied simply. "Feel Mother's fear." Louis hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering him. "Lili, why did you come to me? There must be others of your kind who could help. Warriors, hunters." Lili was silent for so long that Louis thought she might not answer. When she did, her voice was barely audible. "My people afraid of sky predators. Many hide. Some," she struggled for the word, "some make peace offerings. Give food, give people. They sacrifice their own to save themselves," Louis translated grimly. Lili nodded. "But humans fight. I see humans fight big crawler that attacked your camp. You not run, you not hide." Louis remembered the incident, a massive centipede-like creature that had wandered into the main survey camp a month ago. The team had indeed fought it off rather than abandoning the camp. "We had proper weapons then," he reminded her, "and more people." "Not about weapons," Lili insisted, "about heart." She placed her 6-fingered hand over her chest. "Humans have fight in heart." The simple faith this child placed in humanity's courage made Louise's throat tighten. If only she knew how often humans chose self-preservation over heroism. "We'll do our best," he promised, unable to offer more. Lili seemed satisfied with this. She leaned against him, her small body surprisingly warm in the cool mountain air. "My mother will like you," she said confidently. "She says humans and blue people can share world. Many others not believe. But she knows." As Lili finally drifted to sleep beside him, Louis stared up at the alien stars and hoped her mother's optimism wasn't misplaced, and that she would live to continue advocating for peace between their species. They began their ascent at midnight, as planned. The mountain path was treacherous in the darkness, made visible only by the bioluminescent moss that grew in patches along the rocks and the three moons that hung in the sky, one large and amber-colored, two smaller and pale blue. Lili led the way, her natural night vision superior to their own. Her small blue form seemed to absorb the moonlight, making her glow faintly as she navigated the difficult terrain with surprising agility. "We're getting close," Penn whispered after an hour of climbing. The nests start about 200 meters up. As if confirming his words, a piercing screech echoed overhead. They pressed themselves against the mountain face, barely breathing, as massive wings cut through the air above them. "Patrol," Lili whispered once the sound had faded. "They guard territory borders." "How many of these things are there?" Ron asked, voice tight with tension. "Dozens in each nest complex," Penn replied grimly. "Maybe hundreds across the entire mountain range." "We're really doing this," Ron muttered. "Walking into a predator den with kitchen knives." "Shut up and climb," Anna Maria hissed, showing unexpected steel. "That child's mother needs us." They continued upward in tense silence. The path narrowed until they were climbing more than walking, using handholds in the rock to pull themselves up the increasingly steep incline. Louis's muscles burned with the effort, his hands raw and bleeding from the sharp stone. Yet every time he felt his determination waver, he looked ahead at Lili, who climbed with unwavering focus despite her small size. The first nest came into view as they rounded a sharp bend in the path. A dark opening in the rock face, large enough for several humans to enter standing upright. A sickly sweet odor emanated from it, the unmistakable smell of decay. Lili shook her head. "Not here. Not feeling mother." They moved past, keeping to the shadows, all too aware of the occasional winged shapes circling in the distance. The second nest was larger, with evidence of intelligent modification. The opening had been smoothed, almost architecturally designed. Bones were arranged in patterns around the entrance, some recognizably animal, others disturbingly humanoid. Again, Lili indicated they should continue. "How many more?" Louis whispered to Penn. "5, maybe 6 major nest entrances on this face," Penn replied. "But they could be connected internally." They had passed the third nest, empty, according to Lili, when disaster struck. Ron, bringing up the rear, dislodged a stone that clattered down the mountainside, creating a cascade of smaller rocks. The sound, though not particularly loud to human ears, echoed in the night air. Everyone froze. For a moment it seemed they might have escaped notice. Then a screech rang out, followed by another and another, a communication chain spreading the alarm. "Run!" Louis urged, abandoning stealth for speed. They scrambled upward, no longer careful about the noise they made. Beating wings filled the air behind them, getting closer with each passing second. "There!" Lili pointed to a narrow crevice in the rock face. "Hide!" They squeezed into the opening just as the first of the sky predators swooped past their position. From their concealment, they caught their first clear view of their hunters. The creatures were nightmarish, larger than Earth's largest eagles, with wingspans of nearly 5 meters. But unlike birds, they had 6 limbs, the powerful wings, plus 4 grasping appendages equipped with curved talons. Their heads were reptilian, but with unsettlingly intelligent eyes that glowed yellow in the darkness. Most disturbing were the almost humanoid torsos, covered not in feathers, but in a leathery hide marked with patterns that looked suspiciously like deliberate decoration. "They're wearing ornaments," Anna Maria whispered in horror, pointing to the jangling objects hanging from straps around their torsos. "Those are tools." "And weapons," Penn added grimly, indicating the sharpened stone blades attached to their lower limbs. 3 of the creatures circled their hiding spot, communicating with a series of clicks and whistles. After what seemed an eternity, they moved on, continuing to patrol but with heightened alertness. "They know something's here," Louis said quietly. "They just don't know exactly where." "Lili," Anna Maria turned to the child, "can you sense your mother?" "Are we close?" Lili closed her enormous eyes, concentrating. "Yes," she whispered, "very close." "Up there," she pointed to a large opening 2 ledges above their current position. "That's the main nest," Penn confirmed, "the heart of their territory." "Of course it is," Ron muttered. "Couldn't be easy, could it?" Louis assessed their options. The path to the main nest was exposed. They would be visible to any patrolling predators, but staying hidden would only delay the inevitable discovery. "We go now," he decided, while they're still searching elsewhere. "Anna Maria, stay in the center with Lili. Ron, Penn, take the sides. I'll lead." They emerged from their hiding place cautiously. The nearest patrol was circling a lower section of the mountain. If they moved quickly, they might reach the main nest entrance before being spotted. They climbed with desperate speed, pushing past exhaustion, driven by the knowledge that their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. 20 meters from the nest entrance, the alarm went up again. A different call this time, more urgent. They had been spotted. "Run!" Louis shouted, abandoning any pretense of stealth. They sprinted the final distance, diving into the large cave openings just as talons raked the air where they had been. The sound of beating wings filled the entrance, but strangely the predators didn't immediately follow them inside. "They're afraid to come in?" Ron panted, clutching his side. "No," Penn replied grimly, pointing deeper into the cave. "They don't need to." The interior of the nest was dimly lit by the same bioluminescent moss that grew outside, revealing a cathedral-like space with a high ceiling. And moving toward them from the shadows were at least a dozen sky predators, these ones adapted for ground movement, their wings partially folded but their four grasping limbs fully extended, each tipped with lethal talons. "Oh God," Anna Maria breathed. "Mother!" Lili cried suddenly, pointing to a far corner of the cavern. There, suspended in what looked like a woven cage, hung a full-grown version of Lili, a female with the same blue skin but more elaborate markings that spiraled across her exposed arms and face. She appeared weakened but alive, her eyes widening at the sight of her child. "Lili, no!" she called out, her voice melodic even in distress. "You bring danger." "I bring help," Lili responded defiantly. The advancing predators paused, seemingly confused by this exchange. They communicated among themselves with a series of rapid clicks. Louis seized the moment of hesitation. "Spread out," he ordered quietly. "Make them divide their attention." The humans moved into a loose semicircle, Anna Maria keeping Lili behind her. They raised their toxin-coated blades, a pathetically inadequate defense against the creatures that now surrounded them. The largest of the sky predators stepped forward. Unlike the others, it wore elaborate decorations, bones and shining objects strung across its torso. A leader, Louis realized. It made a sound that startled them all, not a screech or a click, but a crude approximation of human speech. "Why come?" it demanded, the words garbled but recognizable. Louis fought to keep his shock from showing. "We came for her," he replied, gesturing toward Lili's mother. "She doesn't belong to you." The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "All prey belong. Blue people, pink people, all food." "Not food," Louis countered, playing for time as he tried to formulate a plan. "People. Like you. Smart." The predator seemed to consider this, its yellow eyes narrowing. "Smart prey. Best prey. Learn from smart prey." With horrifying clarity, Louis understood. These weren't simple hunters. They were studying their victims, learning from them before killing them, evolving their tactics with each capture. "If you keep taking people," Louis warned, "both our kinds will fight you. Together, you can't win against all of us." The leader made a dismissive gesture with one clawed limb. "Blue people fear, give offerings. Pink people few. No problem." "Not anymore," Anna Maria spoke up. "More pink people come every day. Thousands, with weapons that can kill from far away." This seemed to give the predator pause. It communicated with its companions in their clicking language, a heated exchange that Louis couldn't follow. While they were distracted, Penn leaned close to Louis. "I can reach her," he whispered, indicating Lili's mother. "If you create a distraction." Louis gave a barely perceptible nod, then raising his voice, he addressed the leader again. "We propose a trade," he called out. "Let the blue woman go, and we will give you something valuable. Knowledge about the pink people's weaknesses." The leader's attention snapped back to Louis, its predatory focus absolute. "What knowledge?" "First, release her," Louis insisted. The creature made that laughing sound again. "No release. Tell knowledge. Maybe kill quick. No pain." "Now," Louis shouted. Several things happened at once. Louis threw his pack directly at the leader's face, momentarily blinding it. Ron and Anna Maria charged the nearest predators, their toxin blades slashing in desperate arcs. And Penn sprinted toward the hanging cage, using the momentary chaos as cover. Lili darted from behind Anna Maria, following Penn toward her mother, moving with surprising speed for her small size. The predators recovered quickly. Two lunged for Ron, who managed to slash one across its leathery chest before being knocked backward by a powerful wing. The toxin worked almost instantly, the wounded creature's movements becoming sluggish, but its companion continued the attack. Anna Maria faced off against another, her smaller size allowing her to duck beneath its grasping limbs and drive her blade into its underbelly. She rolled away as it crashed to the ground, partially paralyzed. Louis confronted the leader, which had recovered from its momentary distraction and now advanced with cold calculation in its yellow eyes. Its decorated chest suggested it had survived many battles, and its movements were more controlled than its brethren. Smart prey, it hissed. Still prey. It lunged with frightening speed, talons slashing toward Louis's throat. He barely managed to deflect the blow with his blade, the impact sending shockwaves up his arm. The creature pressed its advantage, forcing Louis backward with each attack, clearly experienced in combat against armed opponents. Across the cavern, Penn had reached the hanging cage. He slashed at the woven material with his knife, creating an opening large enough for Lily's mother to squeeze through. The weakened blue woman collapsed into his arms, barely conscious. "Penn, look out!" Louis shouted as a predator dropped from the ceiling above. Wings spread wide. Penn turned, still supporting Lily's mother, unable to defend himself. The creature's talons extended for the kill, only to be met by Lili, who had climbed up the cage and now threw herself at the predator's face, her small fingers clawing at its sensitive eyes. The creature screeched in pain and surprise, its attack diverted. Penn seized the opportunity, lowering Lily's mother to the ground and driving his toxin blade deep into the predator's exposed side. It collapsed, wings thrashing weakly as the paralytic took effect. "We need to go," Penn shouted, gathering Lily's mother in his arms again. "Now!" Louis tried to disengage from the leader, but the creature anticipated his retreat and cut off his path with a lightning-quick movement. "No escape," it snarled, sounding almost pleased. From the corner of his eye, Louis saw Ron struggling against two predators, one partly disabled by the toxin but still dangerous. Anna Maria was bleeding from a gash across her forehead but still fighting, keeping herself between the predators and Penn, who carried Lily's mother toward the exit. They were losing. Even with the advantage of the toxin, they were outnumbered and outmatched. Then Lily's mother spoke, her melodic voice carrying clearly despite her weakened state. She uttered a complex series of sounds. Not English, not even the trilling language Louis had heard from Lili, but something else entirely. The effect on the predators was immediate. They froze, heads cocked, as if listening intently. Even the leader paused in its attack on Louis, turning slightly toward the sound. "What's happening?" Ron called out, using the moment to stagger away from his attackers. "She speaks their language," Lili explained, her voice filled with pride. "Mother learns all languages." Whatever she was saying, it held the predator's attention completely. Louis didn't waste the opportunity. "Everyone out," he ordered. "Now!" They retreated toward the cave entrance, the injured supporting each other. Louis kept his blade pointed at the leader, backing away slowly as Lily's mother continued her strange communication. They had almost reached the exit when the spell broke. The leader let out a deafening screech that echoed throughout the cavern, a clear call to attack. "Run!" Louis shouted. They burst from the cave onto the narrow mountain ledge, immediately confronted by the patrol predators that had been circling outside. Caught between enemies on both sides, they pressed against the rock face, weapons raised in a last desperate defense. "There's no way down," Ron shouted, his back against the mountain as a flying predator dove toward him. He slashed upward with his blade, catching the creature's underbelly. It shrieked and veered away, its movements already slowing from the toxin. "There!" Anna Maria pointed to a narrow crevice in the rock face about 10 meters to their right. "We might fit through there." Louis assessed their situation with growing desperation. The patrol predators were circling more cautiously now, aware of their toxin-laced weapons, but the cave-dwelling hunters were emerging from the nest entrance, led by their decorated leader. "Penn, get Lili and her mother to that crevice," Louis ordered. "We'll cover you." Penn nodded grimly, supporting the weakened blue woman with one arm while guiding Lili with the other. They began edging along the narrow ledge toward the potential escape route. A predator dove at them from above. Louis intercepted it, his blade slicing across one leathery wing. The creature tumbled through the air, screeching in pain and rage before regaining control and retreating to a safe distance. They're learning, Ron warned, fending off another attack. They're staying just out of blade range. He was right. The predators were adapting their tactics, making coordinated feints to exhaust the humans without coming close enough to be wounded by the toxic weapons. We can't hold them off forever, Anna Maria said, blood still streaming from her forehead wound. The toxin on the blades won't last much longer either. Louis knew she was right. Their only hope was to reach the crevice before the predators closed in. But the leader seemed to sense their plan. It positioned itself directly between them and their destination, yellow eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. "You know escape," it growled in its crude approximation of human speech. "All prey." Lily's mother, still supported by Penn, suddenly straightened. Though visibly weakened from her captivity, a fierce determination transformed her delicate features. She spoke again in that strange language, her voice rising and falling in complex patterns. The leader responded with harsh clicks and screeches, clearly agitated by whatever she was saying. "What's happening?" Louis asked Lili, never taking his eyes off the surrounding predators. "Mother challenges," Lili explained, her voice filled with equal parts pride and fear. "She says their ways old, dead-end ways, hunting, killing, path to extinction." The exchange grew more heated, the leader becoming increasingly agitated, while the other predators watched with what appeared to be uncertainty. "She says they once great builders, not just hunters," Lili continued translating. "Says they forget old wisdom. Blue people remember. Can teach. If predators keep killing, soon nothing left to hunt. No prey, no predators." Understanding dawned on Louis. Lily's mother wasn't just a spiritual leader, she was a diplomat, trying to forge a different relationship with these intelligent predators. But the leader wasn't having it. With a final dismissive screech, it launched itself toward them, talons extended for the kill. Time seemed to slow. Louis saw the attack coming but was too far away to intercept. Penn, still supporting Lily's mother, couldn't defend himself. Ron and Anna Maria were occupied with other attackers. None of them saw Lili move until it was too late. The small blue child threw herself directly into the leader's path, her arms spread wide as if to embrace the deadly talons. "Lili, no!" her mother screamed, lunging forward with sudden strength. The leader couldn't or wouldn't alter its trajectory. Its talons slashed across Lily's small body, sending her spinning through the air, blue blood spraying across the rocky ledge. "No!" Anna Maria's anguished cry echoed off the mountain face. What happened next, none of them would ever be able to fully explain. Lily's mother caught her child's broken body, cradling it against her chest. A keening wail erupted from her throat. Not words, not language, but pure maternal anguish that transcended species. The sound reverberated through the mountain air, building in intensity until it seemed to vibrate within the rocks themselves. The predators recoiled, wings folding as if in physical pain from the sound. Even the leader backed away, its yellow eyes widening with what looked remarkably like fear. And then, impossibly, the mountain answered. A low rumble began beneath their feet, building rapidly into a violent shaking. Rocks broke free from the ledge, plummeting into the darkness below. The bioluminescent moss glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with Lily's mother's continuing wail. "Earthquake!" Ron shouted over the growing din. "No," Penn replied, his face pale with realization. "She's doing this. Somehow, she's doing this." The predators clearly believed the same. They abandoned their attack, taking flight in panicked retreat, screeching warnings to each other as they fled from the mountain face. Only the leader remained, its posture now defensive rather than predatory. It regarded Lily's mother with new wariness, perhaps even respect. "What did Lili mean when she said her mother connects with everything?" Louis asked, keeping his blade raised as the mountain continued to shake beneath them. "I think we're finding out," Anna Maria replied, her voice hushed with awe. Lily's mother finally lowered her child gently to the ground. To everyone's astonishment, Lili still breathed, though weakly, her small chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. "She alive," her mother said in halting English, addressing the humans directly for the first time. "But need help. Your help." The shaking of the mountain gradually subsided as she spoke, as if her focus had shifted from rage to pleading. The leader of the predators made a sound, not a screech or click, but something closer to the complex vocalizations Lily's mother had used. It seemed to be struggling to form the alien sounds. Lily's mother responded, her tone firm, but without the rage that had shaken the mountain. The exchange continued for several tense moments while the humans waited, weapons still raised, uncertain if this was negotiation or merely a prelude to renewed attack. Finally, the leader backed away, spreading its wings in what appeared to be a gesture of submission, or at least temporary truce. It gives passage, Lily's mother explained, her English broken but clear enough. For saving child. Then we talk. All three peoples. Louis couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. It's letting us go, just like that? Not just like that, Penn said quietly, pointing to Lily's wounded form. The price was nearly paid in full. The leader made one final declaration before launching itself into the air, circling once overhead before disappearing around the mountain face. The other predators followed, maintaining distance but clearly still watching. What happens now? Ron asked, lowering his weapon slightly but not sheathing it. Lily's mother gathered her injured child in her arms. Now we heal. Then we talk. Your people, my people, sky people, or all die. She looked at each of them in turn, her enormous eyes reflecting the moonlight. You brave, good hearts, first bridge builders. Bridge builders? Anna Maria repeated. Between worlds, Lily's mother clarified. Old prophecy. Three peoples must join or all perish. Louis wasn't sure he believed in prophecies, but after what he'd just witnessed, a grieving mother's wail literally shaking a mountain, he wasn't prepared to dismiss anything. We need to get Lily to a medical facility, he said, making a decision. Our outpost has equipment that might help her. And we need to report what happened here, Penn added. The colonization committee needs to know what they're really dealing with. Lily's mother nodded in agreement. I come with humans. Show truth to your leaders. Then bring your leaders to mine. She looked down at her wounded child. Build bridge. For Lily. For all children. As they carefully made their way down the treacherous mountain path, the predators kept a watchful distance, neither attacking nor fully retreating. The fragile truce held, born from bloodshed, but offering the possibility of something more lasting. Louis supported Lily's mother as she carried her child, still marveling at the turn events had taken. They had come to rescue a captive, expecting only to save a single life. Instead, they found themselves at the beginning of a much larger story, potential peace between three intelligent species sharing one world. If they survived the journey down. If Lily survived her wounds. If the leaders of all three species could be convinced to listen. So many ifs. But for the first time since landing on this alien world, Louis felt something close to hope. The return journey was arduous. They moved as quickly as they dared along the treacherous mountain paths, driven by Lily's deteriorating condition. The child's breathing grew more labored with each passing hour, her blue skin taking on an alarming grayish tinge. She needs medicine, Anna Maria said during a brief rest, examining Lily's wounds with gentle hands. The talons cut deep. Our outpost is still 2 days away, Ron calculated grimly, even pushing hard. She has 1 day. Maybe less, Lily's mother said, her English improving rapidly as she spoke more with the humans. Her name, they had learned, was Kora, or at least that was the closest human approximation of the melodic trill that was her true name. Louis made a decision. We split up. Penn, you're the fastest. Take Ron and make for the outpost at top speed. Bring back a medical team with proper equipment. Penn nodded, already shouldering a minimal pack. We can make it in a day and a half if we don't stop. What about the predators? Ron asked, glancing nervously at the sky, where winged shapes still occasionally passed overhead, maintaining their watchful distance. The truce holds, Kora assured them. For now. With a brief exchange of well wishes, Penn and Ron departed, moving at a grueling pace that would have been impossible to maintain with the whole group. Louis, Anna Maria, and Kora continued more slowly, taking turns carrying Lily's small form. Despite her alien physiology, Anna Maria did what she could to treat the wounds, applying poultices made from native plants that she knew had antiseptic properties. You know our plants well, Kora observed as Anna Maria worked. I've been studying them for months, Anna Maria replied. They're remarkable. So many have medicinal properties. All life connected, Kora said, watching Anna Maria's careful ministrations. You understand this. Others of your kind do not. The corporation sees resources, not connections, Louis explained bitterly. That's why they classified information about your people and the predators. Inconvenient complications for their colonization plans. Kora considered this. Your leaders are like sky predators. See only prey, not balance. Not all of them, Anna Maria countered. Many would be horrified if they knew the truth. They're kept in the dark, just like we were. They made camp as darkness fell, finding shelter in a small cave that offered protection from both the elements and watchful eyes above. Lili's condition continued to worsen, her breathing shallow and irregular. Kora sang to her daughter through the night, complex melodies that seemed to ease the child's pain. Anna Maria eventually dozed off, exhausted from their ordeal, but Louis remained awake, keeping watch alongside Kora. You should rest, he told her after several hours of silence, broken only by her singing. Cannot rest. Must maintain connection. Connection to what? Kora gestured broadly, encompassing the cave, the mountain, the world beyond. To all. When I was captured, connection weakened. Balance shifted. Now must rebuild. Is that how you made the mountain shake? Louis asked, finally voicing the question that had been bothering him since their escape. Kora's expression grew solemn. Not me alone. Lily's pain, my pain, mountain's pain. All connected. She touched the cave wall with reverent fingers. This world alive. Feels us, feels suffering. Responds. The implication was staggering. If Kora was to be believed, the planet itself was somehow responsive to the emotional states of its inhabitants, or at least to beings like her who could connect with it. That's why you're so important to your people, Louis realized. You're not just a spiritual leader. You literally help maintain the balance of the entire ecosystem. Yes, many connections lost over generations. Few remember how to listen, how to speak to world. I teach. Lili learns. Her voice broke slightly. If Lili dies, much knowledge dies with her. The weight of responsibility was evident in Kora's tired features. She wasn't just fighting for her daughter's life, but for the future of her entire species, perhaps for the planet itself. She won't die, Louis promised with more confidence than he felt. Our medicine is different from yours, but powerful in its own way. Kora studied him with her large, luminous eyes. You believe this? Despite knowing so little of my daughter's body, I have to believe it, Louis admitted. The alternative is unacceptable. A faint smile curved Kora's blue lips. This is why prophecy speaks of bridge builders. Faith where no reason for faith exists. Morning brought new challenges. Lily's fever had worsened overnight, her small body alternately burning hot and alarmingly cold. They resumed their journey with increased urgency, Louis carrying the child while Anna Maria supported the exhausted Kora. By midday, they had descended to the foothills, where the terrain became somewhat easier to navigate. The constant presence of circling predators had diminished, though occasionally a lone scout would pass overhead, maintaining the wary surveillance. Do you think Pen and Ron made it to the outpost? Anna Maria asked as they paused to drink from a clear stream. They should be close by now, Louis calculated. Assuming they didn't run into trouble. Trouble comes, Kora said suddenly, her head tilting as if listening to something beyond human perception. Predators? Louis asked, instantly alert. No, your kind. Many. With weapons. Kora's expression grew concerned. Not friends. Before Louis could question her further, the distant sound of engines reached them, the distinctive whine of the colony's all-terrain vehicles. Someone was indeed coming, and quickly. Could be the medical team Penn sent for, Anna Maria suggested hopefully. Too soon, Louis shook his head. And Kora says they're not friendly. We hide, Kora decided, already scanning the surroundings for cover. No, Louis countered. If they're from the colony, they will have thermal scanners. Hiding won't work. He made a rapid decision. We need to split up. Anna Maria, take Lili and Kora and head east, toward the dense forest. The canopy might mask your heat signatures. What about you? Anna Maria asked, clearly reluctant to separate. I'll intercept them, find out who they are and what they want. If it's a rescue party, I'll signal you to come back. He handed Lili's still form to Anna Maria. If not, get Kora and Lili to safety. Find Pen and Ron. Kora placed a six-fingered hand on Louis's arm. Dangerous for you. These not good humans. Probably not, Louis agreed grimly, but better me than you and Lili. After a brief but intense argument, Anna Maria finally agreed to the plan. She and Kora, carrying Lili between them, disappeared into the dense undergrowth to the east, while Louis continued south along their original path, directly toward the approaching vehicles. He didn't have to wait long. Three heavy-duty ATVs crested a nearby hill, each carrying two armed personnel in the distinctive gray uniforms of colony security. Not a medical team, but a combat unit. Louis raised his hands as they approached, making himself clearly visible. The vehicles surrounded him in a practiced maneuver, weapons trained on his position. Identify yourself, the lead officer demanded through a helmet-mounted speaker. Louis Chen, Survey Team 7, Louis replied calmly, keeping his hands visible. I need medical assistance. One of my team is injured. The officer approached cautiously, rifle still raised. Where's the rest of your team? Split up to cover more ground, Louis lied smoothly. We were attacked by flying predators 2 days ago. Lost most of our equipment. The officer studied him for a moment, then spoke into his comm unit. Target 1 secured. Continuing search for targets 2 through 5. A chill ran down Louis's spine. They weren't here for rescue. They were hunting them specifically. What's going on? He demanded, dropping the cooperative pretense. We need medical help, not an armed response team. That's not your concern, surveyor, the officer replied coldly. Your job is to answer questions, starting with, where are the aliens? So they knew. Somehow they already knew about Kora and Lili. I don't know what you're talking about, Louis stalled, mind racing to understand how colony security could be aware of their mission. Penn and Ron couldn't have reached the outpost yet, and even if they had, they wouldn't have revealed Kora's existence to security forces. The officer smiled unpleasantly. Let me refresh your memory. Your team was observed leaving your assigned survey areas 4 days ago. Shortly thereafter, long-range scanners detected multiple non-human biological signatures traveling with you. Command wants those specimens secured. Specimens, not people, not refugees, specimens. We were following an unidentified biological signal, Louis improvised. Standard protocol for previously uncatalogued species. Save it for the debrief, the officer cut him off. You're returning to base with us. The others will be found and brought in as well. I need to stay with my team, Louis protested. We have injured. The butt of a rifle struck him from behind, driving him to his knees. He hadn't even noticed the second officer circling behind him. That wasn't a request, surveyor, the lead officer stated flatly. The corporation has invested too much in this planet to let a few bleeding hearts compromise operations because they made friends with the local wildlife. As Louis was hauled to his feet and secured with restraints, the terrible reality became clear. Someone high up in the colony administration already knew about the intelligent native species and had classified that information not out of ignorance, but deliberate calculation. The specimens they sought weren't being collected for diplomatic contact, but for study, or worse. You're making a mistake, Louis warned as they forced him toward one of the vehicles. The natives aren't just intelligent. They have abilities we don't understand. And the predators, save the fairy tales, the officer interrupted. We've dealt with native resistance on a dozen worlds. This one won't be any different. A sudden shadow passed overhead, larger than the previous scout predators. The officers reacted instantly, weapons swinging upward, but too late. The massive predator, the decorated leader from the mountain nest, descended with frightening speed, talons extended. It struck the lead officer directly, lifting him screaming into the air before the others could fire a single shot. Chaos erupted. The remaining officers opened fire on the predator, which released its victim from a height of 20 meters before banking sharply to avoid the gunfire. More winged shapes appeared on the horizon, moving fast toward their position. Louis took advantage of the confusion, rolling beneath the nearest vehicle for cover. The restraints limited his movement, but he managed to work his way to the far side as the gunfire intensified. More predators arrived, executing coordinated diving attacks that forced the officers to scatter. Their superior weapons were effective. 2 predators fell to the concentrated fire, but they were quickly being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Louis wormed his way further from the vehicles, seeking the cover of nearby rocks. If he could just get out of the immediate battle zone, he might be able to circle back and find Anna Maria and Kora. A shadow fell over him. He looked up to see the leader predator landing nearby, its yellow eyes fixed on him with unsettling intelligence. Blood, human blood, stained its talons and leathery chest. Louis froze, expecting death. Instead, the creature approached deliberately and slashed at his restraints with one precisely controlled talon, severing them cleanly. Why, Louis couldn't help asking, even knowing the creature's grasp of human language was limited. The predator regarded him for a moment before responding in its guttural approximation of speech. Bridge builders, it said, the same term Kora had used. Then with surprising clarity, stronger together. Before Louis could respond, the creature launched itself back into the air, rejoining the battle against the remaining colony's security forces. Louis didn't waste the opportunity. He fled into the underbrush, circling wide around the battle site and heading east to find Anna Maria and Kora. The sounds of combat faded behind him as he ran, replaced by the natural sounds of the forest. He found them a kilometer away, huddled in a dense thicket. Anna Maria had her knife drawn, while Kora cradled Lili, whose condition had worsened during their flight. "Louis!" Anna Maria's relief was palpable. "We heard gunfire." "What happened?" "Colony security," Louis explained breathlessly. "They know about Kora and Lili. They're calling them specimens to be secured." Kora's expression hardened at this news. "Always same story, new world, new peoples. Same mistakes. It gets stranger," Louis continued. "The predators attacked the security team. Their leader cut me free. It used the same term you did. Bridge builders." Kora's eyes widened. The prophecy spreads. Sky people begin to remember old wisdom. "We need to move," Anna Maria interrupted pragmatically. "Security will send reinforcements when that team doesn't report back." "Lili cannot travel more," Kora said, genuine fear evident in her voice for the first time. "She fades." The child's breathing had become alarmingly irregular, her blue skin now ashen gray. Without medical intervention, she would not survive much longer. "We need to split up again," Louis decided. "Kora, you know these forests better than we do. Can you find your way back to your people from here?" Kora nodded. "Yes, but Lili, Anna Maria will go with you," Louis continued. "She has medical knowledge that might help keep Lili stable." He turned to Anna Maria. "The colony won't stop hunting for them now that they know. You need to get Kora back to her people. Warn them." "What about you?" Anna Maria asked, though her expression suggested she already knew his answer. "I'm going to the outpost. I'll find Pen and Ron, get the truth out to everyone, not just the administration. Most of the colonists have no idea what's really happening here. If enough people learn the truth, the corporation can't silence all of us." It was a desperate plan, likely to end with him in detention or worse. But if Kora was right about the prophecy, about three peoples needing to find a way to coexist, then someone had to start building those bridges, even if it meant standing against his own kind. Anna Maria embraced him fiercely. "Be careful. These people clearly don't care about truth or rights." "I know." Louis turned to Kora, who regarded him with solemn understanding. "Keep them safe," he told her. "You also build bridge with Sky people," Kora observed. "They help you, free you." "Yes," Louis acknowledged, "though I'm not sure why." "Same reason you help us," Kora said simply. "Future comes. Better together than alone." They parted ways at the edge of the thicket, Anna Maria and Kora heading deeper into the forest with the fading Lili, while Louis turned south toward the outpost, a solitary figure walking deliberately into danger. Behind him, the distant sound of more engines growled to life as colony security mobilized in force. Above, the winged shapes of predators circled watchfully. And somewhere ahead, if Pen and Ron had made it through, potential allies waited with no idea of the storm that was coming. Three peoples, one world. The bridge building had begun in blood and desperation, but perhaps, just perhaps, it could end in something better. Louis squared his shoulders and quickened his pace. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and likely brief for those who stood against the corporate machine. But for the first time since landing on this alien world, he felt he was truly where he belonged, doing what he was meant to do. The speck of a flying predator detached from the larger group and flew ahead of him, as if scouting his path. Not hunting, guiding. Bridge builders, stronger together. The colony outpost appeared on the horizon as dusk approached. its prefabricated structures and perimeter fence incongruous against the wild beauty of the alien landscape. Louis approached cautiously, keeping to the cover of the dense undergrowth that grew right up to the cleared perimeter. Security had been heightened, additional guards patrolled the fence line, and the main gate had been reinforced with a second checkpoint. News of the confrontation with the predators had clearly reached the administration. Getting inside wouldn't be easy. As a surveyor, Louis had clearance for the outer sections of the outpost, but his unauthorized absence and suspected fraternization with hostile natives had likely resulted in that clearance being revoked. Movement in the sky caught his attention. His predator scout had returned, circling once overhead before landing with surprising stealth in the dense foliage nearby. Its yellow eyes regarded him with what seemed like impatience. "I can't just walk in there," Louis explained, feeling slightly ridiculous talking to the creature. "They'll arrest me." The predator made a series of clicking sounds, then deliberately looked toward the far side of the compound before looking back at Louis. "You want me to go around?" Louis guessed. "Why? What's over there?" The predator didn't respond, of course, but launched itself back into the air, flying low toward the indicated section of the perimeter. After a moment's hesitation, Louis followed, keeping to the cover of the underbrush. The creature led him to the northwest corner of the compound, where the perimeter fence met a steep rocky outcropping. Here, the fence had been installed somewhat haphazardly, following the irregular contours of the rock face. And there, partly concealed by native vegetation, was a gap. Not large, but potentially big enough for a human to squeeze through. "How did you know about this?" Louis whispered, though he expected no answer. The predator landed briefly on a nearby rock, its decorated chest catching the last rays of the setting suns. It made a sound that might have been satisfaction before taking flight again, disappearing into the gathering darkness. Louis approached the gap cautiously. It appeared to have been created by recent ground movement, perhaps an after effect of Kora's mountain-shaking grief. The fence had pulled away from its anchoring in the rock face, creating a narrow opening that would be invisible to casual observation. He squeezed through with some difficulty, tearing his already ragged clothing further in the process. Once inside the perimeter, he pressed himself against the rock face, surveying the compound for the safest approach. The outpost was divided into functional zones, administration and communications in the center, surrounded by concentric rings of laboratories, living quarters, and support facilities. If Penn and Ron had made it here, they would likely be in either the medical facility or the administration building, depending on how their story had been received. Louis opted to try the medical facility first. If Lili's condition was as dire as it had seemed, Penn would have prioritized finding medical help for her over reporting to the administration. Moving from shadow to shadow, Louis made his way through the outer ring of storage buildings. The increased security was evident. Patrols passed at regular intervals, and the usual civilian personnel going about their evening routines had been replaced by armed guards at key intersections. He nearly collided with one such patrol as he rounded a supply shed. Only quick reflexes saved him as he ducked behind a stack of equipment crates, holding his breath as the guards passed within meters of his hiding place. "Complete lockdown until further notice," one was saying to his companion. "Full containment protocol if any of the survey teams try to return without clearance." "What about the ones they brought in already?" the other asked. "Quarantine, then debrief. Command's not taking any chances after what happened to Team 4. Louis's heart raced. Team 4, that would be Penn and Ron's designation. They had made it back then, but were being held in quarantine rather than receiving the help they'd sought. The medical facility loomed ahead, its windows brightly lit against the deepening twilight. Two guards stood at the main entrance, checking IDs of anyone entering or exiting. No chance of slipping in unnoticed there. Louis circled around to the rear of the building, or building, where the emergency access doors were located. These would be locked, of course, but as a surveyor, he was familiar with the outpost's security systems, including their weaknesses. The emergency doors utilized a keypad override for precisely the kind of crisis situations that might disable the main security system. The code changed weekly, but followed a predictable pattern based on the outpost's founding date and current mission phase. If Louis's calculations were correct, this week's override should be... He punched in a 6-digit sequence and held his breath. A moment later, the lock disengaged with a soft click. Louis slipped inside, finding himself in a dimly lit service corridor. The quarantine section would be on the lower level, separated from the main treatment areas. Louis made his way to a service stairwell, descending carefully to avoid alerting the staff to his presence. The lower level was eerily quiet compared to the usual bustle of the medical facility. A single guard stood at the entrance to the quarantine wing, looking bored but alert. Beyond him, a reinforced door with a biometric scanner controlled access to the quarantine cells. Louis couldn't bluff his way past both the guard and the scanner. He needed a distraction. Inspiration came in the form of the facility's fire suppression system. Each section had independent controls that could be activated manually in case of emergency. If he could trigger the system in another part of the building, he retreated up the stairs to the main level, quickly locating a maintenance panel near the laboratory section. A few careful adjustments to the sensor thresholds, followed by the application of his lighter to the nearest smoke detector, and alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Staff rushed to evacuate patients from the affected area, while security personnel converged on the apparent fire. In the confusion, Louis slipped back down to the quarantine level 1, where the lone guard was speaking urgently into his comm unit, requesting instructions. Louis approached boldly, affecting the harried demeanor of medical staff responding to the emergency. "Quarantine evacuation protocol," he announced authoritatively. "All non-essential personnel to muster point 3. The guard hesitated. "I wasn't informed." "New procedure after the Cave Ridge incident," Louis interrupted impatiently. "Level 3 containment subjects remain locked down, but guards relocate to secure the perimeter. Check your updated briefing." The uncertainty on the guard's face was clear. No one wanted to be the person who abandoned their post unnecessarily, but equally, no one wanted to be the person who failed to follow new security protocols. "I should verify with command," the guard began. "Comms are prioritized for emergency response," Louis countered smoothly. "Look, I don't care either way, but when Commander Ellis asks why you weren't at your designated evacuation post during a Level 2 emergency, don't say I didn't warn you." The mention of the outpost's notoriously strict commander seemed to decide the matter. The guard nodded curtly and headed for the stairs, leaving Louis alone with the quarantine door. The biometric scanner presented a more difficult challenge. Louis's authorization had likely been revoked, and attempting an unauthorized entry would trigger additional alarms. He needed the credentials of someone with current access. The solution arrived moments later in the form of a harried medical officer rushing down the stairs, tablet in hand. "Are you the specialist they sent?" she asked, clearly assuming Louis was part of the emergency response team. "Yes," Louis replied without hesitation. "I need access to the quarantine subjects immediately." The doctor frowned. "That's not standard protocol during a facility alarm. It is when the alarm was triggered by anomalous readings from the subjects themselves," Louis improvised. "Command is concerned about potential contamination spreading through the ventilation system." The doctor's eyes widened with alarm. "They didn't brief me on that." She moved immediately to the scanner, placing her palm on the reader. "We have 2 subjects in cells 3 and 4. They came in showing signs of exposure to unknown biological agents." The door slid open, revealing a sterile corridor with 6 isolation cells, 3 on each side. The doctor led the way, continuing to brief Louis on the patients. "They claim they encountered non-terrestrial intelligences," she explained, her tone making it clear she didn't believe the story. "Administration is treating it as potential hallucinogenic exposure from native flora. We've been running standard detox protocols. They reached cells 3 and 4, where observation windows revealed the familiar figures of Penn and Ron. Both men looked exhausted but unharmed, sitting on the edges of their respective beds, with the defeated posture of prisoners who had given up hope of being believed. "I need to examine them directly," Louis told the doctor. "Possible neural effects from the exposure." The doctor hesitated. "They've been classified as security risks. I'm not authorized to—" "Doctor," Louis interrupted firmly, "if there is a biohazard situation developing, every minute counts. I'll take full responsibility." Perhaps it was his authoritative tone or simply the chaos of the ongoing alarm situation, but the doctor relented. She pressed her palm to the scanner beside cell 3, then cell 4. 10 minutes, she said. "I need to check on the evacuation status. The system will reseal automatically if there's any attempt to leave the quarantine zone." The moment she was out of sight, Louis rushed into Penn's cell. His friend looked up, eyes widening with shock and then relief. "Louis, you're alive!" Penn jumped to his feet. "They told us everyone else was presumed dead after the Predator attack." They lied, Louis said grimly. Ron, can you hear me? He called through the open doorway to the adjacent cell. Ron appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of disbelief and hope. What the hell? How did you get in here? No time to explain, Louis said urgently. What happened when you reached the outpost? Did you tell them about Kora and Lili? Penn's face darkened. We tried. They didn't want to hear it. The moment we mentioned intelligent natives, they shut us down, put us in quarantine for psychological evaluation and possible xenobiotic contamination. They took our samples too, Ron added bitterly. Anna Maria's toxins, everything that could prove what we encountered. It's worse than we thought, Louis told them. They already knew. Colony security was hunting for Kora and Lili specifically. Called them specimens to be secured. Penn cursed under his breath. The bastards. I knew they were hiding something, but this... He shook his head in disgust. What about Anna Maria? And the others? Anna Maria is with Kora, taking Lili back to her people. The child is in bad shape. Louis quickly summarized the events since their separation, including the Predator attack on the security team and his strange alliance with the Predator leader. So now both the natives and the Predators are helping you? Ron asked incredulously. While our own people are hunting us? This is insane. Bridge builders, Penn murmured, echoing the term both Kora and the Predator leader had used. It makes a twisted kind of sense. If these three species have shared this world for generations, they must have found ways to coexist before. Before we showed up and disrupted everything, Louis finished. Exactly. And now the corporation is trying to cover up the existence of intelligent natives to protect their investment in the planet. Standard procedure, Ron said cynically. Seen it before on Proxima B. If natives have rights, corporations lose profits. A sudden shift in the alarm tone indicated the fire alert was being downgraded. Their time was running short. We need to get out of here, Louis said. Get the truth to the general colony population before the administration can bury it completely. How? Penn asked practically. The entire outpost is locked down. Communications are monitored. And in case you haven't noticed, we're in quarantine cells. Louis smiled grimly. I have help outside. Strange help, but effective. As if on cue, a new alarm sounded, the perimeter breach warning. Multiple breaches, judging by the urgency of the signal. That would be the Predators, Louis guessed, creating a diversion. You coordinated an attack with them? Ron asked, clearly struggling to process this development. Not exactly, but they seem to understand what's at stake here. Louis moved to the door, checking the corridor. We need to move now while security is responding to the breach. The quarantine wing remained empty, the doctor not yet returned from checking on the evacuation. The three men moved swiftly to the stairwell, ascending to the main level where chaos reigned. Medical personnel were still dealing with the fake fire alert when the perimeter breach sounded, creating a perfect storm of confusion. The communications center, Penn suggested as they slipped through the crowded quarters. If we can broadcast the truth to all outpost personnel simultaneously. Too heavily guarded, Louis countered, but there's an alternative. The survey team equipment bay has emergency comm units with colony-wide channels. They changed direction, moving toward the outer ring of buildings where survey teams stored and maintained their field equipment. As they exited the medical facility through a side door, the full scale of the Predator diversion became apparent. Winged shapes circled the outpost, diving occasionally to keep security forces occupied, but carefully avoiding causing actual casualties. It was a demonstration, not an attack, a show of force rather than an attempt to destroy. Incredible, Penn breathed, watching the coordinated movements. Their tactical intelligence is remarkable. Less admiring, more running, Ron urged, pulling him along. They sprinted across an open area between buildings, using the confusion to blend in with other personnel rushing to emergency stations. The equipment bay was mercifully unguarded, all available security having been diverted to the perimeter. Inside, they quickly located the emergency communication units, rugged portable devices designed to function when standard systems failed. Louis powered one up while Penn secured the door and Ron gathered additional equipment they might need for escape. This is Survey Specialist Louis Chen with an emergency broadcast to all colony personnel. Louis began, broadcasting on the emergency channel that would reach every communication unit and speaker system in the outpost. What I am about to tell you has been deliberately suppressed by colonial administration. He spoke quickly but clearly, detailing their discovery of Lili, the rescue of Kora, and the truth about the intelligent native species. He explained the predator society as well, their tool use and language capabilities, and the brewing three-way conflict that colonial presence had exacerbated. The corporation has classified this information to protect their investment, he continued, aware that security would be tracing the broadcast and converging on their location. They would rather provoke an interspecies war than acknowledge the rights of the native intelligences of this world. Penn took over, providing the scientific observations that lent credibility to their claims. Ron added details about the security response and their detention. "We're not asking you to take our word for it," Louis concluded. "Look up. The beings currently circling our outpost aren't mindless animals. They're an intelligent species making a calculated show of force while deliberately avoiding casualties. They could have slaughtered us. Instead, they're communicating the only way they can." A thunderous pounding on the door indicated security had located them. Ron braced himself against the entrance, buying them a few more seconds. "Bridge builders or grave diggers," Louis said into the comm unit. "That's the choice each of us faces now. 3 species shared this world before we arrived. Will we be the fourth to join in balance, or the destroyers of everything?" The door burst open, security forces flooding into the room with weapons raised. The 3 men raised their hands in surrender, but the broadcast had been completed. The truth was out. As they were forced to their knees and restraints applied, Louis looked through the window at the circling predators. Their leader hovered briefly in view, its decorated chest distinctive even at a distance. It raised a taloned limb in what seemed remarkably like a salute before banking away. The colonial administration's response was swift and predictable. Louis, Penn, and Ron were classified as suffering from xenobiotic psychosis and placed in isolated confinement. Official channels dismissed their broadcast as the ramblings of survey teams exposed to hallucinogenic native flora. But the seed had been planted. The dramatic aerial display by the predators had been witnessed by hundreds of colonists, many of whom now questioned the official explanation. Rumors spread, questions were asked, and small acts of resistance began to emerge among the general population. 3 days into their confinement, Louis was brought to an interrogation room where a woman in a pristine corporate uniform awaited. Her insignia identified her as Director Keller, the highest-ranking corporate representative on the planet. "Mr. Chen," she greeted him with professional coldness, "you've created quite a problem for colonial operations." Louis said nothing, waiting. "Your little broadcast has inspired some troubling insubordination among certain elements of the colonial population," she continued. "Workers refusing to clear native forests, science teams demanding access to classified survey data, even security personnel questioning their orders." Still, Louis remained silent. Director Keller sighed. "I'll be direct, Mr. Chen. The corporation has invested 17 billion credits in this planet. The board is not going to write that off because some survey specialists had an attack of conscience over a few primitive natives." "They're not primitive," Louis finally spoke. "They have language, culture, sophisticated ecological understanding that we lack. And the predators are equally irrelevant to colonial interests," she interrupted. "Yes, we've known about both species for some time. Initial assessments classified them as pre-sapient, suitable for managed conservation, but not legal recognition." "That assessment was deliberately falsified," Louis challenged. "They're fully sapient, and you know it." A thin smile crossed the director's face. "Sapience is such a subjective standard, Mr. Chen. The legal definition requires certain benchmarks of technological development, written language, organized governance structures. Neither species qualifies under colonial charter regulations." "Convenient definitions," Louis noted bitterly. "Practical ones," she corrected. "However, recent events have forced a reassessment of our approach. The coordinated predator activity you inspired demonstrated capabilities we had underestimated." A flicker of hope sparked in Louis. "You're acknowledging their intelligence?" "I'm acknowledging a security threat that requires adaptation of our strategy," she replied carefully. "The corporation is nothing if not pragmatic, Mr. Chen. When facts change, so do our methods." She slid a tablet across the table. On it was a formal document with the corporate seal. "This is a revised assessment of indigenous life forms. recategorizing both the blue-skinned humanoids and the aerial predator species as proto-sapient, with protected status in designated reservation territories. Louis scanned the document with growing skepticism. Reservations? You're still planning to displace them. We're planning to accommodate them while proceeding with necessary resource development, Director Keller corrected smoothly. The corporation is prepared to establish formal, if limited, diplomatic contact. We've even authorized a search for the female and juvenile specimens you were protecting, with orders for non-violent retrieval. Her name is Kora, Louis said coldly. Her daughter is Lili. They're people, not specimens. The director waved a dismissive hand. Terminology can be adjusted for public communications. The point is, Mr. Chen, we're offering a compromise that serves everyone's interests. Everyone except the natives who will lose most of their territories and autonomy, Louis observed. Progress requires change, she replied. But I didn't bring you here to debate philosophy. I brought you here to offer you a role in the transition. This caught Louis by surprise. What role? Indigenous Affairs Liaison, Director Keller said, as if conferring a great honor. You've demonstrated unusual rapport with both native species. The corporation values such rare talents despite your regrettable methods of bringing them to our attention. The offer was both tempting and horrifying. A position of potential influence, but one that would require him to facilitate the corporation's version of compromise. And if I refuse? The director's expression hardened slightly. Then you and your friends will remain classified as victims of xenobiotic contamination, requiring extended medical isolation for your own safety. Your broadcast will be officially attributed to hallucinogenic exposure, and colonial operations will proceed according to the original timeline, without the benefit of your humanitarian input. A classic corporate trap, co-option or elimination. Louis had seen it before in other worlds, where principled opposition was either absorbed into the system or neutralized. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility, not the controlled alerts of drills or minor emergencies, but the piercing wail of a level 1 security breach. Director Keller's comm unit buzzed urgently. The blood drained from her face as she received the message. What have you done? She demanded, rising abruptly. I've been in confinement for 3 days, Louis reminded her calmly. Whatever's happening, it's not my doing. The door burst open, a security officer appearing with weapon drawn. Director, we need to evacuate you immediately. Multiple breaches, unknown hostiles inside the perimeter. As they rushed the director from the room, Louis was left alone, restraints still binding his wrists to the table. Through the window, he could see personnel running in all directions, panic evident in their movements. Minutes passed, the alarms continuing their urgent warning. Then the door opened again, revealing not security forces, but a familiar face. Ana Maria, looking exhausted but determined, a stolen security keycard in her hand. Took you long enough, Louis said with a grin as she released his restraints. Had to wait for the right moment, she replied, helping him to his feet, and gather sufficient forces. Forces? Ana Maria's smile was fierce. Kora convinced her people it was time to stop hiding. And our predator friends seem to agree. Come on, there's someone who wants to see you. They moved swiftly through the chaotic facility, security too overwhelmed to stop them. Outside, the true nature of the breach became clear. Dozens of blue-skinned natives had entered the compound, not with weapons, but in a deliberate, coordinated demonstration. They moved with purpose, but without aggression. Their mere presence, previously denied and hidden, a powerful statement in itself. Above, predators circled, maintaining their show of force without attacking. And at the center of the main courtyard stood Kora, her dignified presence commanding attention despite the chaos around her. Beside her, supported but standing on her own, was Lili, alive, recovering, her small face lighting up at the sight of Louis. You did it, Ana Maria said quietly as they approached. Your broadcast. People listen. Not everyone, but enough. When the natives appeared at the perimeter, some of the security teams refused orders to fire. Engineers disabled sections of the fence. Scientists came forward with suppressed data. You started something, Louis. Kora greeted him with a formal gesture, 6 fingers spread in what he had learned was a sign of respect among her people. Bridge builder, she said, her English much improved. My daughter lives because of you. My people step from shadows because of you. I just told the truth, Louis replied, humbled by her words. Truth is strongest bridge, Kora said simply. Now we build more. Director Keller appeared across the courtyard, surrounded by loyal security forces. Her face was a mask of controlled fury as she surveyed the unprecedented scene. Natives, colonists, and even predators, the latter having landed on rooftops to observe the unfolding events. This changes nothing, she announced, her amplified voice carrying across the compound. The corporation's claim to this world is legally binding. These demonstrations will not alter that fundamental reality. Kora turned to face her, unintimidated. Your papers, your laws, they mean nothing to this world. World was here before papers. Will be here after. We can coexist peacefully, the director countered, shifting to a more conciliatory tone for the benefit of the watching colonists. The corporation has already prepared generous accommodation plans. No more lies, Kora interrupted, her musical voice somehow carrying more authority than the director's amplified one. No more taking, no more specimens. 3 peoples shared world before you came. Now 4 peoples must share. Equal or none survive. Murmurs spread through the gathered colonists. Many had come to this world not for corporate profits, but for the promise of a new beginning, a chance to build something better than what they had left behind. The corporation's deceptions had betrayed that promise as surely as they had betrayed the native species. The corporation will never agree to equal terms with primitives, Director Keller said dismissively. It's not economically viable. Then corporation will fail, Kora replied with simple certainty. This world rejects those who take without balance. As if in response to her words, a low rumble began beneath their feet, similar to what had happened on the mountain when Lili was injured, but more controlled, more deliberate. The ground trembled just enough to be unmistakable without causing damage. The colonists looked around in alarm. The security forces wavered, unsure how to respond to a threat that came from the planet itself. A simple seismic event, the director declared, though her voice lacked conviction. Common in this region. Not seismic, Kora corrected. Warning. World speaks when balance breaks. My people hear. Sky people begin to hear. She looked pointedly at the director. Your people can learn to hear or can be swept away. The predator leader chose that moment to descend from its rooftop perch, landing with deliberate precision, equidistant from Kora and the director. Colonists gasped and security raised weapons, but the creature made no aggressive move. Instead, it placed something on the ground between them, a crude but recognizable representation of the planet, fashioned from woven materials and decorated with symbols of all 3 native species. Bridge, it said in its guttural approximation of human speech, the single word heavy with meaning. A profound silence fell over the compound. 3 native species, previously assumed to be in constant conflict, presenting a united front. It was a moment of possibility that no corporate directive could fully control. Louis stepped forward, positioning himself between the director and Kora. The choice isn't between profit and abandonment, he said, addressing not just the director but all the colonists within earshot. It's between conquest and cooperation, between repeating humanity's worst mistakes on a new world or finally learning from them. He turned to the director. You said the corporation is pragmatic. Prove it. Because this planet has shown it can reject us if we refuse to find balance. Director Keller's face revealed the rapid calculations occurring behind her professional mask. The situation had spiraled beyond standard corporate containment protocols. Too many witnesses, too many colonists now questioning, and the unprecedented unity of the native species created a scenario with no easy resolution. The corporation requires time to consider these developments, she said finally, her tone suggesting neither acceptance nor rejection. In the meantime, all aggressive operations against native populations will be suspended pending review. It wasn't victory, but it was an opening. The first crack in the corporate facade, a chance for something different to emerge. Time is acceptable, Kora agreed, but we watch. All 3 peoples watch. The predator leader made a sound of apparent agreement before launching itself back into the air, circling once overhead in what seemed like a gesture of closure before flying toward the mountains with its companions. As the extraordinary confrontation dissolved into smaller groups, discussions, and the beginnings of genuine exchange between colonists and natives, Louis found himself standing with his friends, Ron and Penn having been released in the bun, confusion, alongside Kora and the recovering Lili. What happens now? Ron asked, watching the director retreat with her security detail, already speaking urgently into her comm unit, undoubtedly contacting corporate headquarters for new instructions. Now the real work begins, Louis replied. Building bridges strong enough to last. Lili, still weak but improving, reached out to take his hand. You already started, she said simply. Others will follow. Kora nodded in agreement. Old prophecy says 3 peoples become 4 when true bridge builders arrive. Much pain and change, but new balance possible. The corporation won't give up easily, Penn cautioned. They'll try to divide us, find ways to continue their plans while appearing to compromise. Then we stay vigilant, Anna Maria said firmly. All of us, together. As the suns began to set over the outpost, casting long shadows across the unprecedented gathering of humans and natives, Louis felt something he hadn't experienced since arriving on this world. Genuine hope. Not naive optimism, but the clear-eyed recognition that something profound had changed today. 3 species that had found their own tenuous balance over generations were now faced with integrating a 4th. It would be difficult, sometimes painful, and the corporate forces would resist at every turn. But the alternative, conflict, exploitation, destruction, had been momentarily halted by an alliance none could have predicted. Bridge builders. The term echoed in Louis's mind as he watched humans and blue-skinned natives cautiously beginning to communicate, to see each other as people rather than threats or resources. Above, the predators continued their watchful circling, no longer hunters but guardians of this fragile new possibility. 1 world, 4 peoples, a future unwritten but suddenly, improbably, open to something better than what had come before.